Everyone, my name's Neville. I'm an author and journalist from Oxford in England, and I could listen to Harry all day. I love his personality as well as his tricks, but we've got another treat in store for you now. This is going to be what we call a mini chat show, and it's an opportunity to meet some of the guests who come from the different parts of the world. I've been a student with the Brahma Kumaris for very many years, and when I began, I had what the sisters call a stone intellect, which means very materialistic. But as the years have gone by, it gradually melted, and now I really appreciate what's happening here today so much with all of you. So this morning and this afternoon, I'm hosting these mini chat shows as part of this great event, and in their own unique ways, these individuals that I'm going to be introducing you to are making a spiritual response to these critical times. This morning, our theme for our little chat show is the power of the mind. And first, let's meet Victor Petron. He's a barrister from Australia. He describes himself as an advocate for optimism. That's great, Victor. What do you have to say to that?
Oh, my game, Neville, is to fight pessimism, paralysis, and microphones that don't work.
Please take a seat. We'll hear more from you shortly. Here you go. And next, I would like you all to welcome Dr. Valentina, a pediatrician from the Seychelles. She uses her own powerful thoughts as a child doctor to calm nervous children. Valentina, what do you have to say about that? How does it work?
Well, I'm just an instrument of the Father.
Okay, that's great. And we're also joined by the internationally renowned, please take a seat, the internationally renowned musician Ayako Ichimaru. So Ayako will introduce herself. Lovely, lovely, Ayako. Please take a seat. Now, our mini chat show. Let me just check how we're doing there. Okay, I'm going to start with you, Victor. The power of the mind. In a way, from what you were telling me, your whole life has been a demonstration of this. Your parents came to Australia as refugees from Stalinist Russia, and you found Oz a great land of freedom. I believe your first encounter with managing the mind was when your mother started teaching a Christian form of yoga back in the 60s.
Back in the 1960s in Australia, people were completely unaware of yoga. And as my mother tells the story, people used to rib her and suggest that she was making yogurt rather than yoga. But it, for her, became a life calling. And now she is 90. She is the longest serving yoga teacher in Australia. Her classes are still full. And at the age of 90, all of her classes are full. She is so optimistic. She is saying, should I start some extra classes?
It's great. I believe she connected you to the Brahma Kumaris too, some years back.
She did. She took me to, she went to a retreat with Brother Charlie.
Oh, brilliant.
And she said, you must go along to the Brahma Kumaris. And the next event was, in fact, a cooking retreat. And I still remember the line that Brother Charlie gave at that time, which has infected my own cooking, and my son cooks beautiful Indian food, but food cooked with love is the great nutrition, and that's my lesson from my first encounter with the Brahma Kumaris.
Fantastic. And you were a high flyer in many ways. You were a barrister at 23, which is really exceptional. You were elected to Parliament at 28. Then later you had a very significant role as Commissioner to the Americas, where you were based in San Francisco and New York. What did that entail?
So that was delivering the Australian dream to large American corporations. So my job was to visit the Boeings of the world, the Alcoas of the world, the Caterpillar of the world, And every time I went to visit them, there was this romance about Australian leadership. The chairman of Caterpillar said to me, "You Aussies remind me of the Americans of 100 years ago. Nothing is impossible." And this went on in Latin America. Brother is here from Brazil. The head of the Rio Olympics wanted an Olympic Games like Sydney, but a legacy like the Olympic Games of 1956. And then I had the even greater privilege, Neville, of working on the G20. So I saw your President Modi at work in the international environment. But when I got back to Australia, the strange thing was this pall of pessimism, a fog of pessimism over my country where people did not understand the qualities of leadership. So I then, rather than complain about those who complain, I then studied what makes a good Australian leader. And those of you who know the Aussies, you've just beaten us at cricket again, we're egalitarian, we're funny, we're plain speaking, no bullshit. But the thing that I worked out was that there are millions of people like that, Neville. The problem we've got is the problem that so many countries have got, is pessimism. And so I've decided to devote my life now on my mother's model. She's still working at 90. I think the next 30 years will be about asking people what makes you optimistic, to let them discover for themselves what makes them optimistic so that they can be the optimistic leaders that this nation needs and that the world needs.
It's fabulous. And you've written a book, The Case for Optimism, The Optimist's Voices. How did that come about?
I started in my quest to ask people I asked the head of McKinsey, and the head of McKinsey said to me, every good leader is an optimist. But it's not a rah-rah Pollyanna optimism, it's infecting your own team with optimism. The head of Unilever immediately gave me a response and talked about the inspiration of young people. Helen Clark, the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, the head of the United Nations Development Programme, said nothing can be achieved without optimism. And even when we think about the environmental movement, so many people are concerned about climate change. But the problem is all the bad news creates a paralysis. People stop taking action and say, well, the government should do something. And I've observed, for instance, Al Gore, Christina Figueres, Michael Mann, the real climate leaders, are now saying we must be optimists. We must believe we can make a difference. And it's what the Brahma Kumaris said. I mean, as Sister Genti just said, you have to take action. You have to be positive. You have to know you're going to make change.
You were telling me a story that, in a sense, summarizes how a change of mind that can happen so quickly can make a big difference. About this chap who was laying cables in your garden. Very quickly, Victor.
This is a very practical story for all of us. I advocate that people use slight changes in language. So instead of going home and saying, "How was the day, honey?" you ask them what is the best thing. And I had a man knock on my door to tell me he had to lay a trench through my garden. And I was very friendly. I said, no problems. And we talked a bit more, and he asked me what I did, and I told him I was a writer, and I gave him a copy of my book, The Case for Optimism. He walked to the gate, and then he came back. He was Pakistani by origin. He had an arranged marriage. And he told me that his wife was completely miserable, that the household was miserable, that when he got home, it just felt awful. And I said to him, what do you say when you get home? And he says, how was your day, honey? And honey immediately told him everything that went wrong. The children wetting, dirtying the nappy, everything that could happen. And I said, tonight and every night, go home and ask her, what was the best thing in your day? 10 days later, Neville, he knocked on my door. He said she won't shut up now. She just keeps talking about the good things in her day. My marriage is now wonderful.
It's great, isn't it? I love that story.
And that's a hint to every one of you. When you go home tonight, if your partner is not with you, Ask them what was the best thing in their day and you will find a smile on their face.
Thanks very much, Victor. Valentina, your parents actually came from Lucknow, didn't they, in UP? And they moved to Africa, met there, and your mother's mother is from the Seychelles, so you moved there.
Yes, actually, my grandparents are from Lucknow, and they moved then to Africa.
Right.
And then from there, my parents met in Kenya. And then from there, we went to Uganda. And from Uganda, we had to go. I think you all know about the Idi Amin time. And so we were among the Asians who were going to be thrown out. And luckily, we knew somebody from the church because my parents were very religious. And he managed to keep us back. So then we could move in our own time to Seychelles, where I am living now.
And you studied in Germany, I understand,
Yes.
originally. You became a pediatrician in Germany.
Yes.
And you were one of the first lady pediatricians in the Seychelles.
Yes, to go into private practice.
Right.
Yes.
So you did some hospital work, then you were in private practice. You decided after a bit that the private practice was a bit too limiting and you went back into hospital work. What brought that about?
Yes, I decided that when I was doing, I had joined the Brahma Kumaris, and I felt that I need to serve more. I need to serve a larger group. So serving the elite, very high-class people, because they could pay. So there was a limited group of people who could come to the clinic. So drama is so sweet. Situation happened that I had to change because of we had to change building. So I thought, since it's taking too long to go back, I just go back and work in the hospital. And here, I must tell you the truth, I've met and I've treated, with the help of Baba, so many souls who have come, children, and I think they have benefited from being a double doctor.
You're a double doctor in the sense that you're connecting to God in your work.
Yes.
And bringing that energy to the children.
Yes.
There was a story you told me about a little boy who was screaming. He was afraid, going to the doctor. He thought he was going to be hurt. And somehow you managed to calm him.
Well, it's an experience I got more and more after joining the Brahma Kumaris. I noticed that when the children walk in, and when we look at the children as souls, immediately their screaming, their anxiety, their fear just disappears. So I talk to them very softly, and then they listen because I'm talking very softly. So they want to know exactly what you're saying. So they listen very quietly, and they stop screaming. So the parent says, "What did you do to the children?" So I say, "It's Baba's wonders. It's the supreme wonder."
That's really lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Valentina.
Thank you.
And now, Ayako. You live 1 minute from a Raja Yoga Center in Hong Kong, but you're from Japan originally.
Yes, I'm very lucky soul.
And how did it come about that I wanted to mention that you studied music in London and also in Indiana in the US on a scholarship. And you now have this studio in Hong Kong where you also teach meditation.
Yes, I have learned meditation from Raja Yoga, and I'd like to spread to more people. So we opened the studio for music and also for meditation.
Oh, I see. So you deliberately opened it quite near the Raja Yoga Center.
Yes,
Fantastic.
and close to our home also.
But when you first went into this Raja Yoga Center, how come that you suddenly decided that this was something you wanted to take up in your own life?
Actually, I had a lot of questions in my life around that time because the Japan has gone through the crisis from tsunami and the earthquake, and I had always think, why? And so much question. And me and my husband, Harry, took the Raja Yoga course together. And from the first lesson, all my questions were answered. So ever since I have not left meditation and study and Baba.
That's so beautiful. Tell us what your professional life as a musician and a violinist has taught you about the power of the mind.
Yes, actually I travel a lot with my violin here, and actually I found a lot of self-learning with the instrument and my body as an instrument. So maybe I will do some demonstration now?
Yeah,
Is it
please.
Okay? Yeah. I'd like to ask, when you see the violin here, the instrument, do you hear anything? No. Do you feel anything?
It's just a piece of wood, isn't it, really?
Yeah. So the violin needs me, the player. So let's do the experiment.
Oh, that's so joyful.
Was it joyful?
Yes.
Do you feel happy?
Yes.
Yes?
Absolutely.
Okay, how about this?
Oh, that's not so joyful.
It was intense, angry, anxious. And how about this?
So, Ayako, how does this teach you about the power of the mind? You showed us that here's this piece of wood, and it's just a piece of wood until you pick it up and make something happen in it.
Yes. So actually, the Raja Yoga has taught me that I, the soul, the living energy, uses this body to share the beautiful music with others. So when I, the soul, the living energy, is fully charged with the divine energy, and through the meditation, we have a power to choose our music. And not only we have power to choose to be happy, peaceful, and loving, but we can share this vibration with others regardless of the situation that we are in. And this made my life so beautiful. And this is what I want to share with a lot of people in the world.
That is absolutely beautiful, and it connects so nicely with what Victor and Valentina told us too about the way they choose to use this instrument to bring peace and happiness to those they're with. Thank you, that's been phenomenal. A big thank you to our guests. I will be back with some more great characters this afternoon when our topic will be living in the world of everyday life and living with God. You've already heard something of that. But now, Ayako will play for you a piece called One, which came to her mind here in Delhi 2 years ago when she was sitting in a meditation pyramid at the BK's Om Shanti Retreat Center. And anyone here who hasn't visited the Om Shanti Retreat Center, it's about an hour out of town, depending on the traffic, really should make sure you go there. It's like a little paradise. So thank you all very much. And now over to Ayako with One. Thank you.